Hey, hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Overwatch Developer Livestream on maps, both voting, reworks, new maps. Somebody, McBrown1010 asked in chat if this was live or if this was going to be pre-recorded.
It's live. Yeah.
So just there's your answer. There you go. It is live. Want to welcome all of you guys here, but also kind of want to go through what we're doing here, what we're hoping to cover before we get into it. Really looking to do sort of like that deep dive into a specific topic. For today, obviously maps, like I said, voting, reworks, new maps, and really get into the nitty gritty, not just like a high overview, but as much as we can cover with how we've developed these maps for season 17. So I really want to throw this over to my friends here on the couch.
Yeah, what we're looking for is, a very like casual sort of get into nitty gritty of some of the other things we're doing in season 17 and the mid-cycle, 17.1, and, put kind of a nice focus on some of this stuff, so we have George here today, one of our senior level designers, to talk through a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so in addition to map voting, Alec will go over that a bit. I'll be going over our reworks of Suravasa and New Junk City, and then once we're done with those, I'll be showing you the new map, Aatlis.
Yeah. All right. Before we jump straight into that, I'm gonna ask, any particular games you guys are currently playing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting back into Street Fighter. There's
nice.
a recent patch, so I've been getting back into that for EVO later this year. And then Doom the Dark Ages. There's actually one thing on the team we like to do. Every month we like to kind of gather and talk about a particular game, usually something that's within the genre, and talk about like, hey, here's some really awesome things they did. And the shield in that game is great. Yeah, so
okay.
a lot of really good game feel.
Yeah, and I've been playing Elden Ring Night Rain and the Oblivion remaster, so I've been living it up in Cyrodiil a bit.
Nice. Okay. Okay. I'm always OG Overwatch. I work on it during the day, and then in the evening I'm either in stadium or in comp. Last week and a half since I've been here, haven't been able to play, and it's making me a little itchy. But yeah, so let's jump into maps here. We're gonna start with map voting. So I'm gonna throw this to you, Alec.
Yeah.
Walk us through map voting.
Yeah, so just to start off, like, why are we adding map voting? We think overall, Overwatch is a better experience when you get to play on the maps that you enjoy more often. We also believe in adding tools to our game that allow the players to sort of like show us what they love the most, right? So that's one of the things we've been really looking at with hero bans and now map voting. This has been in works for a little bit, and we think it provides a nice. One of the things we wanted to maintain with map voting though was that there's still variety. You're not just only playing Kane's Row every single time, even though that's probably going to win a lot of votes.
Yep. Okay.
So we're still going to use our same old like map logic to actually populate what maps are going to appear in the voting itself. Yeah, and we think overall, it's going to help influence things later on, like what sort of reworks we do, which maps or modes might need the most attention, things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big requested feature on the community side. I believe we have, do we have a little?
I think we have a little video.
Yeah, okay.
Go through the flow here, what you're gonna see actually like pretty soon in season 17. So normally there'd be 3 maps here. Okay. This is actually pulled from a playtest we had recently. We're actually playtesting the reworks for Suravasa, New Junk City. So you go through and you'll see the votes populating. This is overall like the entire lobby, what they're voting on, that represented by those little ticks there. And then you see the number of votes below that, and actually the split of what your team is voting for, what the enemy team is voting for. Part of the thing we wanted to do with not only map voting but also hero bans is make these screens feel like social experiences. So that's why we want, like, the votes are popping in, you see what your team's going for, see what the enemy team's going for. So there's like a little layer of strategy there if you want to make sure you're on the map that your team actually wants the most rather than being the odd one out. And then once you actually go through, you'll see all the votes come in, and then you'll see this roll through. So you can kind of play through that to see the roll through and how it actually decides which map you're going to play on. And normally, this countdown, if all the votes are actually already in, it will actually just automatically go into the roll through itself. Yeah. One of the other things, and you'll see, like, it's like one of those games you might play, at some amusement parks or something like that, where it rolls through, like, boom, boom, boom. we want to make this a very fun experience too. We want this to feel like, oh, there's something here that's like exciting for this moment. So it's not majority rules. It's actually, it's going to roll through and pick one of those votes. So if it is 9 votes on Kings Row and there's 1 vote on, something like Rialto, it could still land on that one. The chances are low, but it could happen. And we also want everyone to feel like their vote is impactful. Maintain that sense of variety as well.
That makes sense. So like, how did the map voting idea internally start? How did we kind of come up with what we wanted?
It's one of those things we've talked about for a while, but in earnest, this project probably started with one of the things on the team we like to call Harvest Fest. So Harvest Fest is Overwatch's version of our own hackathon. And what happens is teams get together and they make a variety of different things for the game. Some of those things are much more like personal projects. Some things are a bit on the silly side, some hero prototypes and things like that go bonkers. And then there's some projects, though, that there's a group of people on the team that's like, I really want to see this in Overwatch. So I have 3 to 4 days to put something in front of the team that can help make this a reality. And then, what we'll do actually for the next few game check-ins and things like that, the team will all gather and we'll actually go through and people will present their ideas. It's a really fun experience over that end of the year as we're presenting all of those. And one of those, I think this is 2023? Yeah, 2023 was map voting. So there's a group of people that were really passionate about map voting. And you can see this is the early UI of this. Actually show the enemy team too. We were thinking about doing hero bans and map voting in one screen at one point and what that might look like. But you can see a lot of the stuff from this early UI though, from Justin on our team actually ended up being in the real UI itself. So some of the changes over time, we wanted to actually not have the enemy team there yet because that kind of flows into hero bans as well, where you won't see the enemy team until it all populates. And we wanted this to get a little bit cleaner. So there's a bit more space by removing everyone on the right. You see some of the boxes here and there. And then how did the voting ticks, how did the voting roll through? What did that look like? So I think there's another screen here we have that will show. There's actually some progress here.
Nice.
Yeah, we had some inspirations from some other games that have done similar things, but we wanted to keep it on one screen. This is still a really fun screen. I love this because it actually shows who voted for what, and it represents it with all the maps, and kind of this nice visual representation of it all, rather than there's a little bit of counting in your head in the current one.
Yeah.
But we wanted to keep it on one screen, just made the flow a little bit easier. But here's another prototype that we were doing.
Love this entire team on the bottom that just went all in on Kings Row. It was just that's it. We're going Kings Row.
Yeah. But so we went through some iteration, and I really love what the team did at the end of the day with the ticks because it just allows it to represents the vote, also represents how you're able to roll through it, and then keeps it on one solid screen. So we can make this as seamless as possible. We want map voting and hero bans to not add a ton of weight to your time before you get into the actual Overwatch match.
Makes sense. So obviously we got a lot of data with hero bans that we've been through in our weekly recall blog previously. If you haven't read it, you should. But Lav, what are we looking at with map voting?
Yeah, so obviously we're going to see which modes and which maps are more popular than others. But I think what we're going to directly take from that is how does that influence what reworks we do? Season 19, we're already getting started on some reworks for the end of the year. I know, George, you're working on some of those already. But we already do surveys that influence that, but this is more like behavior in game, so it will be a little bit different to see how that results or compares to some of our surveys.
Yeah, so I would say that's, if there's one thing you take away, I would want you to take away knowing that map voting is going to help us have data and understand what you like and what you don't like, and then we can go and we can have more reworks, because we really want to keep updating our maps and levels in the future, and it's just invaluable data for us to get, so we know what maps we can kind of keep reworking.
And pitting maps of the same mode against each other, I think is one thing. Everyone's always, at least the group I play for, we love playing on Control. But I was like, okay, which maps in particular though? So yeah, I'm excited to see that all go live pretty soon. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And speaking of, I guess your team or what maps you like, how has the map voting been received internally in our play tests?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we keep going back to it. Kings Row wins a lot. But it's good to see sort of the split of who likes push on the team, who likes Flashpoint, who's actually more of a hybrid player in particular. Yeah, I think overall, though, it's I think there's always this moment like in the lobby where people are in team chat, they're typing like, okay, let's vote for this, let's vote for this, and then you see the roll, and then it ends up on the one map that someone voted, just one person voted for. Like, it's like, who did that? But it's just a great time. I think there's, as I said, a little social experience before you get into the game, and hopefully that creates a nice moment for the teams.
Fantastic. Well, I'm really excited to do map voting. Really excited for like 90% of my games to be on Kings Row. But as I'm sure most people in chat probably feel similarly. But now I'm going to jump it over. George, I want to chat with you because we're chatting Suravasa rework.
Oh yeah.
Also New Junk City rework. So walk me through the philosophy that like you and the team had behind all of our like Flashpoint maps and Flashpoint reworks.
So we really wanted to tackle Suravasa and New Junk City with our new map Aatlis. We learned a lot of new things, and just watching how people play and knowing that people don't like that. Like, unfortunately, people don't like the map and mode as much as we want them to, and so we are like looking at it, like really understanding what people want, like what we can improve upon. And so we're trying to make it just much more clear, like how people can get to points. So we have this philosophy of we want to make much more grand entrances. And so as you'll see, as we do the fly-throughs later on, everything's just much more in your face. It's much easier to tell where to go. We want much less snaking throughout the map. We just want you to know where to go, and we don't want you to get lost in the map. So we're really, really, really working on just making everything have much more clarity and minimizing everything. Just have players get to the point. We want you to fight on the point. And yeah, so basically I can show when we do the fly-throughs, there's a lot of little like level design tricks and art tricks that we're doing to improve upon it. But I think you'll like it a lot.
So going into the first one, like Suravasa, what were the important things on that map in particular compared to some of the others?
So we actually, for the most part, like how Suravasa plays relative to New Junk City. For the most part, it's a map that people like more. And so essentially we changed, or I changed half the map. And so essentially there's a lot of awkward like nooks and crannies that people could kind of like split up from their team. There wasn't like clear, obvious paths. And so just simplified a lot of geometry, just made it much more clear where you're supposed to go. And then just removed a lot of line of sight blockers that would confuse players. And another thing we're trying to do is we want to increase the identity of each of the control points, because sometimes things blend together. Here's an example of a before and after shot we have. So for here in particular, this was a bad choke point that a lot of teams would fight at and die, and so it was really hard to push onto point here. And so one thing I did is basically I just opened it up. Just want to open it up much more for the player. So we want you to get to point. We want you to fight over there. I don't want you to fight right here. And then also it's just nice because it frames the tempo much better. And so there's things like this where it's just like, it's much easier to see where you're going, where large POIs are in the distance. That's where we're really, really trying to push for these reworks.
Yeah, because you talked earlier about like, some of these things get broken down or they get shrunk so you can actually just see where the point is or the entrance to the point a lot more easily from far away.
Yeah, and so like this is an example of something that's just kind of in your way, and people kind of can get, when they're moving around it towards point, people kind of get lost and people split up around it. And this is right outside the spawn room. And so this is before where you can't really see what's going on, and removed it and basically made a recessed area where it still has a decent line of sight covers to protect you. It's a little harder to like spawn camp the spawn point, but essentially the wall right there, it used to parallel with the pavilion, and essentially I angled it so it faces the spawn point. So right when you're leaving the spawn point, you know exactly like, oh, that's where it's going. It's like, it's facing me, it's greeting me, and you don't have to get stuck or split up. And so that's kind of like the philosophy of like, I want you to see where you're going from like further away, and not have to like figure out where you are or where you're going like as you're running to point.
Like that entrance to the ruins point now just feels like a lot more attractive. It's like easier to point out, and also that health pack's like way more accessible too.
Not gonna lie, I did not know there was a health pack there until this, like, we've been going through this, and I'm like, oh, that's useful. I actually think we're able to kind of fly through the map so that we can kind of see a little bit more on the different things that you've changed. Fantastic.
So here's one of the spawn point entrances, and so this area, if you remember, there was like a big old wall right there. And so basically we still needed that line of sight blocker, like kind of just made a stepped wall. And this area right here used to be this big chunky square building that had like a door you entered into, and then there was like, you like sneak around it. And so people would kind of get split up and like stuck in here. And if you're coming from the ruin point and going to the palace, people would split up from each other. So just really wanted to simplify this. It's important that we have a line of sight blocker here, just so you don't get shot from really far away. And then just for memory,
I appreciate that.
like the further you see in the game, like the worse it is for the memory in your computer. So stuff like that's really important. So essentially just wanted to simplify this, make a single wall, and then I framed it with the trees that kind of incentivize like, hey, just go through here. This is like a simple, like in your face entrance to go through. And then the trees are nice too because they act as like line of sight blockers from the sides. Before we used to actually just have like a big, huge wall right to the left here. And by making it stepped, it feels like a little more organic and you can see beyond it a little bit. But to compensate for it, basically like we added the trees.
Okay.
Yeah, I love how it's just a lot easier just to use mobility right out of spawn too. Like, you know, rather than having like snake through, if you have like just straight line mobility, it was like I didn't get the most out of that. But yeah, this wall getting knocked down just, I mean, as you said, like now you can see where the entrance to the other point's going to be. It's just a lot easier to. I don't even think people really even know that's an area right now, like on live as much, or they don't utilize as much as we like may want, because like it's just hard. You don't really put your head over to the left or right when you come right out of spawn. You kind of just go forward because it has that wall there.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a little bit big to see over.
And so if we go to this corner over here, this is what we talked about a little bit before with the pavilion. Remove that, just like angle that wall to look at you, brought up the door frame, and then added that glow to it. So it's just like much more like, hey, this is the point. This is where you go. Because what would happen often as well in our playtest and just seeing what players do is when we had the pavilion here, people wouldn't use the side entrance to go to the ruin point. They would actually go all the way down to the market and then use that entrance over there. And that was like a longer run through. Or sometimes they go through that little door. And so basically we wanted to show players like, hey, this is like the closest way to the point. And we were like really wanted to incentivize that.
And one thing that, you know, if you look at the point right now, like you can see there's new vines there in particular, right?
Yeah, so if we go over to the point, there's a new little flanking route over there I added as well. But yeah, we wanted to, basically people confuse these points a lot, like this and the blue temple. The other one was temple, this one was ruins, and so basically wanted to really push the ruin feeling. Like, again, this is like still a work in progress, but we wanted to just bring a lot more vegetation and vines in here, and just kind of give it like a much stronger identity. Like there's a really cool like tree kind of growing on the rooftop.
No, yeah, I've been looking at all the roots coming down.
Yeah.
It is so cool.
But the thing too with the tree though is like people don't look up. Like in every game, people just don't look up. So it's just one of those things where it's like a nice little detail that was like lost on players. So just
straight ahead.
So just bringing it down for like line of sight for players.
And if you kind of get a glimpse of there, if you actually go into the point itself, there's like water here now. So it definitely has that like feeling of this has been sort of abandoned in some way, or like it's overgrowth, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then one thing that I love, basically we added a platform right there, halfway up the stairs. This stairs was just a huge death trap for people. You would just go down it and just get blasted. And basically we just wanted to have people use this this route a little more and not be forced to the sides. And so you have like a little bit of cover at the columns here, and so it's just nice to kind of get in there and have a little protection. Or if you're like defending the point, it's kind of nice to just kind of get that little high ground right there as well. So it just adds like new rotation to this point that I think plays out pretty nicely.
Love that.
Yeah, this one's played out really well. I also love what you did sort of actually getting off this point though. Say you win this point, there's a new route that actually takes you to the next point over here on the left. It's like cave entrance.
What?
Yep. Added a little cave flank point here. So to go between the ruins and the temple point, you had to go back to the central market and then back to the temple. But between the gardens and the palace point, there was a cut through similar to this. So basically wanted to kind of mirror that to this side. It's more of a flanking route because it's like it's pretty tight. And you have two ledges next to you, so you can kind of get booped off. So we don't want to make it like too strong, and so you're still kind of at risk of getting thrown off the map a little bit if you're taking the shortcut. But yeah, this has been a really nice little organic pathway we were able to add to these points.
So what about Temple Point? We were talking a little earlier, and I think the point itself looks different now, like in terms of the trim being brought down, those details. Right?
Yeah, so in addition to level design changes, for our artist basically did a pass on. There's a lot of little details that I'm sure there's a bunch I forgot or missed. But basically they did a pass that they just kind of wanted to improve some art that they wanted to see. Like if you see some of the symbols, like the silver diamonds, a lot of that used to be at the way top of the temple. But again, it's like, why are you going to look up if you need to worry about everybody on the ground?
So all the Farah players and Mercy players got to enjoy all that
they get
cool stuff.
They get to enjoy it. And so just they brought a lot of the details down so you can kind of see it a little easier. And they just kind of updated some of the trim and some of the art. So there's a bunch of little surprises like that through here and New Junk City as well, where they just changed up the art a little bit.
And what about fighting on this point, or some of the routes, that are some new flanking routes? What do we have here?
So this point, for the most part, other than the cave, is the same, except for at the entrances where I showed earlier, where everything was kind of widened up. So if you go towards the corner gate and look towards the point, actually, there's a little flanking route I added
It's kind of peeking right there with the lighting, right?
Yeah, so there's a little flank route I added there. It's mirrored over by the ruin side as well for people to come in here. And if you go towards the main gate right there and look towards the point, yeah, this is everything that's kind of been widened up a bit. The stairs have been pushed back, and yeah, it's just much easier to get in. Just wanted to widen it up for players to not get stuck in there.
Yeah, let's flip the camera 180 real quick. I think one thing here, if we just go forward, you used to this would be a lot of interference right here. People would kind of hold you. It's kind of hard to get through because even the route on the right was pretty congested. It seems like that's a little bit more opened up too. So how's this played out?
Yeah.
I think it plays way nicer. One of our philosophies is when people get stuck in these chokes in these flashpoint maps, and then you lose a team fight at the entrance, we don't really like that. It doesn't feel great, especially if the defending team has the point and they're getting percentage points and you're not able to even get on point. We don't really want that to happen, so we basically try to make it a little easier to push into point. And since we widened up that passageway as well, there's little things like this fence right there by the pit was brought up just a little bit so people can't shoot you from point. And so we had to pay attention to that's one of the tricky things we need to pay attention to in level design is especially for flashpoint maps, I'm want to widen up all the choke points, but then by doing that you have a lot of long line of sight, and so it's a little push and pull, making sure that you can't get sniped from a mile away from opening up these chokes. But yeah, this is nice because the people get on the point much easier.
What other challenges were you trying to solve for with this map? Obviously chokes, movement, trying to keep people from fighting off the point, so you're actually fighting on the point.
Yeah.
Are there other challenges that you guys were running into?
Yeah, we still want people to have fights on the way to point. So that's what, for this the recessed area here, we still wanted to create a fun little area you can fight around. You have things to rotate around and things like that. But we want you to be able to ignore that and get from point A to point B as fast as possible.
Okay.
And so it's just finding creative solutions of how do we get you there quicker and not have to snake and move around things, and how do we prevent teams from splitting up? And because before, one of the biggest things for this point was people would go through that little door to the left, they'll go to the right, some people go past this towards the market, and so basically just kind of pointing teams and hey, this is the route you should be taking.
This is where you should be going. This is foolproof. I appreciate that.
If we could actually just go to the left here outside of it, one of the other things I really love about some of the changes you made to Suravasa is a lot of these structures are just lower now.
Yeah. And
then the archways or some of the details of them are higher, so you actually know where you're going from a distance, right?
Yep. So this so essentially this pillar used to cover the doors entirely of the market. So if you were by spawn, you couldn't really see the doors, or if you're coming from the garden, you couldn't really see the temple door. So basically pulled it all down so it still acts we still want it to be a line of sight blocker. It's important to us, but we brought it down, and then for the entrances, they're the same size, except for those arches have been pulled all the way up. and then we added that like neon light to it so you can see it from far away. And we did the same thing for both the ruin and the temple entrances. Basically brought everything up. You can see from further away. That was our biggest thing, is that people would often get stuck in the alleyways, and we didn't want people to get stuck and lost in the alleyways, and so just making everything like have much more clarity to it.
Not just having to use like the global like in-world waypoint to get to the point. It's like,
so,
oh no, here's like a here's where you are, here's where you need to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go on to market actually.
Yeah. Let's go inside.
So I've always thought this point plays out pretty good in terms of like, you know, there's some high ground here, people get to wrap around. Any new additions to this one in particular?
Yeah, we for this one didn't want to make too many changes to it. One thing I did though is if you go to the side and look at the boxes.
The boxes.
The boxes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Added some boxes for people to jump up on. So you can get the point. You can get up on point now without having to go onto the staircase. So it's funny because like sometimes the smallest change is like the biggest change, if that makes sense, where this is going to like change up the flow a lot for players just to get up there. Because normally you could just like stay up on point, and if they don't have like high mobility heroes, you can just like hang out by the staircase and just kind of keep people off. But now it gives brawlers and heroes like that options to get up there, which as a Rhine main, I want to get up there. Yeah.
It felt really good. So.
Yeah.
I like that.
So, yeah.
All right. And then I know there's the thing up at the front entrance here. Yeah, because with changing from having like high ground. So
yeah, so
walk me through some of that.
Yeah, this one was interesting because there's a little bit of high ground here, and so basically in old iterations we try to make the high ground work, but if you remember, there used to be a bunch of boxes that were like awkwardly placed, and there are boxes because there's not much room around here to give players clearance to jump up to a second layer, and basically we didn't really like how players were playing on it. It was kind of like some people like having that space and others don't, but at the end of the day there's just kind of awkward fights that would happen out front, and so we wanted to just kind of simplify it all a lot and to get people onto point and have people focus on having fights at point a lot more than worrying about people up on the high ground.
So I know we've got 2 other maps, but I really want to talk about some of the stuff that changed in on the Palace point, because we were talking about this earlier, and this point is super cool. So.
Yeah. So for this one, this is nothing really changed for this from a level design standpoint, but this is an example of art coming in and kind of doing a pass over things. They added a lot more gold trim to the palace because they wanted it to feel much more like a palace. Cool. Like it used to be kind of like a beat up old fountain in the center there now, and it has like a gold flower. I think you called it an egg earlier.
I did, and it's not an egg at all.
Well, from a distance.
A gold egg.
Was from a distance. Yeah, no, that is definitely not an egg.
Yeah, so just like they just really wanted to kind of sell the palace feel a little bit more.
Comes through. It's really nice.
And if you go to the entrance and look at the wall, I like the wall. It's cool. Yeah, they added like it's just like little details like this
So
where they
dope.
just like added a nice, really cool like material to it that make it pop a lot more than what used to be there.
And it follows that theme, like grand entrances, not just on the point itself having those details that are, you know, they're more thematic, but you know from far away it's like, oh, that's the point we need to get to.
Yeah.
It looks so much different than the other ones.
Yeah, that visual identity per point.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I'm excited to get to Aatlis later, so we can show people the culmination of our grand entrances.
Fantastic teaser. And also just to call out one last thing with this last point, because I know Suravasa is one of the more liked on our Flashpoint maps.
Yep.
You were saying this one very light touch on this point.
Yeah, we didn't change this point.
Oh, okay. So not the lightest of light, as
We
in
like
touch.
this.
Yeah, there's good flank routes. You got like the edge there if you want to boop anybody off.
Yeah, we like this. Like this actually has a really this is a good example of this has like a really strong visual identity. Like people know what this map this point is. The temples though, it's just like they kind of just blended together. So we just wanted to do that, just make everything have like a much stronger identity, like in general for all of our points. And so we're trying to push that a lot. and a lot of that too is just like communication. That people are like, hey, let's go to the temple point, and there's like three points
temples.
of
Which
temples.
one?
Yeah, so we're trying to like solve that a bit by making everything feel very different for all the Flashpoint maps in general.
Very cool. There was one point that we didn't touch on in the philosophy earlier. So I think we're also exploring some logic changes to which flashpoint point actually unlocks next, right?
Yeah. So to kind of there's a lot of like it's a highly contested mode, and there's a lot of like people feel like it's unfair with some of the run back times or just how the logic's chosen. So we're trying something different. It's a work in progress still, but essentially how the logic works is if you win, so whoever wins the first central point, the second point will be loser favorite side. And then after that, we're getting rid of diagonal.
It's like crossing through the middle.
Yeah, cross through the middle. So basically what it'll do is it'll randomly choose between adjacent points, and then it'll kind of keep doing that. And so we're getting rid of a little randomness from it, and there will be you'll be able to predict it a little bit more, but we're just like testing it out a lot, and we feel like this feels a lot better than having the diagonal run across.
Okay.
It's
from one end of the map to the other necessarily
yeah.
And there's always like a straggler on your team, right?
Yeah,
like
so,
they get caught, they're in Ana, they're behind you. It's
yeah,
like,
just from like
sorry.
a lot of research and like looking at players, how they play, a lot of issues people would have is like, for instance, like for like all players, but some players would, I don't want to call, I'm not calling anybody out.
It's fine,
but,
it's fine. You can call me out. It's fine, it's fine.
But sometimes you get you win a point, and then a diagonal point would unlock, and then some of your team would go one way. Basically, people would like split up into 3 groups, which we don't like. We want people to kind of stick together. And then sometimes people, even though we have the giant like this is the enemy forward spawn symbol, some players would just run like directly across the forward spawns, and then get killed, and then your team yells at you, and then we're basically like we're just trying to like reduce that a bit, and we think the removing the diagonal runs helps a lot.
I love it. Let's jump into New Junk City, because I know that there was quite a bit of changes on this map.
Okay, New Junk City is kind of a beast.
Yeah.
Where did you start? What were the problems you were identifying early on?
This is a crazy map. It's like no surprise, like people's least liked map. So basically, we sat down, like really looked at it, and similar to Suravasa, a lot of it's just like we're just trying to let players know where they are, because one of the biggest things is just like you get lost so easily in this map, and a lot of it was just like things blended together, just the routes, like people weren't sure where to go. There's too many options for them, and so a lot of it's just like grand entrances, simplifying paths. We changed some of the color coding for the art, and we're just you'll see when we do the
We have some before and after shots that we can pull up here.
Yeah, we'll do the before and afters. Yeah, so here's an example.
So tall.
Yeah. Here's an example of like when you spawn, you get out of the spawn point. You have the hammer mill main path is around the corner, but again, it's just like you can't see where you're supposed to go, and like the walls are so high that people would actually get lost around here by spawn, which is we didn't find ideal. Like we want you to know exactly where you are, and sometimes people would get lost where. Like which side of the map was I on? Like am I on my side of the map or am I on the enemy side of the map if they're by these buildings? And part of that too is just like you don't have any like POIs or like focal points in the distance or in the sky to look at, and so
if somebody doesn't know what a POI is,
point of interest.
Fantastic.
So just like a big object that you can follow. And so
whoa,
yeah, so
big difference. Oh my god.
I just chopped off a bunch of the rooftops. And so because like the New Bomb Flats point right there, it has a really cool big bomb.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, we couldn't really see it because the buildings are too tall. So it's just really like, I want you to see where that is. Just really want to just like reduce some of the size of these buildings. Added a door there to give like, so because before too you had to run around the building, which was a little awkward. So had a little cut through there. And if we can go to the next slide.
So the points or the entrances to the points should be the tallest thing, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We want the points to be the tallest, but then they're competing with some of the other side buildings that were just as tall. And then here's an example of like a grand entrance we made. Well, the before. Essentially, when you got to this point, it's just kind of confusing. Like you don't really know where you're supposed to go here.
There's a lot of entrances.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of,
some
it says ducks in a
people,
lot of spaces.
yeah, people go to that little, like where that little health pack is there. Like this happens at the sewer point as well, where people go in there thinking it's an entrance, but it's just a health pack, and then they go back out. And the problem with this point is there's like 3 entrances right here, and nobody knows what's on the other side of it. Like you can't really tell what's going to happen until you go in there, for better or worse. And so if you can go to the next slide.
Whoa.
Just like
made
it way different.
I love those fans too.
Those are so cool.
Yeah, I like the fans. Yeah, our artists are awesome.
When you said, hey, I'm making grand entrances, you really said, I'm making grand entrances.
Yeah, like we had the problem before. People are like, they couldn't tell the difference between the ducts and the sewer sometimes because it's just all like scrap metal. And it would, I mean, it's New Junk City. That's who they are. That's their aesthetic. But it's just hard to differentiate what's what. So like updated a lot of, like you can kind of tell here, like just like push the colors a lot more, gave it a grand entrance. And this one was really interesting too because for a while I was kind of like hitting my head against the wall of like, hey, how can I? What would happen is people get in big fights right outside the entrance or like at the entrances, and we're just having trouble. Like we call it staging areas where you're basically going up to a point and your team posts up and you kind of have a fight before you get onto a point. But what would happen on this point is there'd be 2 staging areas. So basically everybody push up to a point, have a big fight, and then push up again to the point and kind of have another fight. And so I was having trouble kind of figuring out what to do because essentially for the old actually I can go through this in the flat through a little more, but essentially just got really good feedback from my teammates about like, hey, why don't you just like chop off a chunk of the building and make it outside, because the thing is we just kept having too many spots indoors for players to push.
This is way more open now.
Yeah.
If we have less indoors, there's less fights indoors. That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and this is another change we did. Like I was saying before, is like that door down there. You're like, that's the main entrance, but it's a health pack. So even though like I played the game a million times, I would go in
very
there.
deceiving.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, oops,
Yeah.
that's not the right way. And so, yeah, just again, we're just pushing the colors. We're pushing the goo. We called it. I don't know canonically what it is. Their fuel, I'm guessing. I just call it the goo.
Miranda, tell us later.
Yeah, Miranda will give us an update. But
I thought
just
it was like sewage, but I guess that would be wrong. I am not narrative.
I hope not, because we added a lot of it.
Okay, great.
Well, so we really pushed the identity of each point and just kind of made these grand entrances. And yeah.
Let's jump in and see and do like a quick fly through on some of these points and see what we can see.
All right.
So we're at that first point of the spawn right now, right?
Yeah.
Right outside of it. So you know everything's cut down, like you said.
Yeah. So everything's cut down. Just like made everything streamlined and just easier for you to get closer to the points. So here's one of the.
I love this area now, George.
Yeah. So this is one of the changes you made. Essentially, there used to be a hole here.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a lot of vertical depth, and it was really interesting because I actually like that area in the micro. Like as a level designer, I'm like, oh, it's a really interesting, like visually aesthetic space. Except for it just the way it played out is people kind of got caught in there, and then it just took people a while to get to point. You felt a little unsafe here, and nobody ever used the entrance to the bomb flats to the left. Like nobody, or if you could rotate the other way, thank you. Like nobody would ever go over here, and so basically we're like, well, we want people to use this area.
Bombs.
And then also a lot of people didn't know there's a giant bomb above the point, and so we just put a bunch of bombs. We were just, it was kind of funny because we were like, I had a lot of gray box geo, and I'm like talking to artists like, oh, I don't know what we should have here, like these bombs right here to the left. You should just be boxes. I'm like, oh, I'm not sure. Like in my head, I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be like little houses or something. And then artists are like, what about bombs? Like, what about more bombs? And, okay.
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, this is like a Junker map. I feel like somewhere Junkrat was very excited about that visual direction. More bombs.
But a change we did for this map was we kind of just made these like big stacked bombs. But the thing that happened on this point is we used to have like little shops there. And I brought that where it's recessed, or that on the sides of the map. I actually brought it up like 1 to 2 meters. Like if you can go to the side a little bit. Yeah, over here. So basically, like these recessed areas used to be 1 or 2 meters lower. Like I actually think they used to be closer to this floor, closer to you. And so what happened was, people would be at the high ground at the main entrance, and then you would actually be really, really far vertically from the opposing team. And so there actually be like weird fights that happen here. Like they're like, so basically pulled up a little bit. It's still recessed. You're just much closer vertically from each other. And you can see everything a little bit more. Like everything is kind of like, because of that, the lower area, it was hard to see everything.
What about the cover on this point? It feels like there's some, you changed that up a little bit, or is it just the aesthetic that's like throwing me off now?
I think they might have changed the colors. Oh, also?
No, the cover.
The cover. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly just the sides right here, and then probably made like, there's like little things too, like I probably like made tweaks to the walls or kind of push things out a little bit, but the point itself is more or less the same, like the center point. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but we got rid of a lot of trash and junk. Because we just had like a ton of sand and actual like trash piles everywhere, and we got feedback that people are like, this just feels like really visually busy. I don't know where I am. I don't like looking at it. And so like for this point, we just like reduced a ton of the sand, just kind of made it much more plated. Just like to simplify like the game space as you're like running around it.
And how is it played, this point in particular?
I think it plays pretty well. Yeah. It's we don't have like that vertical difference anymore, which is like one of the more awkward spots. And basically people actually come in the main entrance now, which is nice, because before it used to be the side entrances only, which we wanted to fix.
I think I thought the side entrances were the main entrance, and the main entrance was the side entrance.
Yeah.
So that's yeah.
Even though there's like that mega there, so there's like some gameplay that happens around here, right? Because if you come in like that this alternate route, like through there, but yeah, it definitely didn't get as much play as those sides.
Let's jump to another point, because I want to hear more on like what you've done with some of these other points. Whee!
Let's go to the junkyard.
Heck yeah.
All right. Can you actually go to like the side entrance?
Oh yeah, this is much more open now, right?
Yeah. So this was a huge choke right here, and essentially like I was saying, and oh, sorry, I was like distracted by the boxes flying.
Yeah,
I was like, what is that?
Is that new?
No, it's in there.
Okay, okay.
There's so many like little details I miss sometimes. But if you look down a little bit, so this area right here where the tarp is, was a huge choke point for players. Like basically fights would just be dictated right here. Yep. And so just push that out a ton, made it like a lot less choky for players. And also right there, part of it too was there is, I'm pointing, but yeah, you probably don't know what I'm pointing up there. But I added a ramp so you can actually go to that middle point, because before there used to be, like if you look down, like right here, so you can actually come down here and rotate on the point and rotate around the space. Before it used to be a drop off, and so essentially you'd have to commit by dropping off into the middle spot, which people don't, it's dangerous to do it. And so basically just kind of adding these ramps in here.
To approach that, you had to, like, if someone was on that high ground, you had to like burn like an ability, a movement ability or something to get up there, right?
Yeah, so you can just rotate around this whole area like a lot nicer. And then the high ground, it didn't see a lot of play that much, like to the left there. Nope, can you do a 180? Yeah, there you go. So it was kind of an awkward space. There's 2 big ramps that used to be there, like really, really big. And so basically teams didn't want to come through the main entrance and go through those ramps because you felt like you were unsafe.
Yeah.
Because of the drop down, you couldn't rotate back up. And so essentially just simplified it, still a little bit of high ground, 1 ramp down the middle, and it's just, you have a lot more options to kind of rotate around.
So much more clean, honestly.
Love it.
Yeah, because it was one of those, like, just like the new bomb flats, just want people to approach from this direction as well instead of the side doors.
This point's been a lot of fun to play in playtests. Just being able to get on the point a lot more easily, not being nailed at that choke.
Yeah.
But I really love, speaking of grand entrances, the hammer mill is just a lot more noticeable now too, to our left.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
boom, that entrance just feels like it's more distinct.
Yeah. So a big
Lighting is dope too.
Yeah. Basically, people very very tight. Another example of that door is a lot wider than it used to be. And if you can go into the door, Katie. Yeah. So it's way bigger. Door to left, bigger. Wall on the other side of the pipe, bigger. Like all the walls pushed it out. Just a lot more space in here for you to get in and out. And yeah, just gave you a lot more space. So basically, you wouldn't get trapped in there as much.
Yeah, everyone's been in there, just like
Yeah.
just like very claustrophobic at times. And then one of the things on the point itself that I think is great, the lower level now is it's connected, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Oh, snap.
I connected all of the ground, I don't know what you call this area. Don't look at that black wall.
It's not
in
there.
progress. But it just connected all of this like together, because right here this used to exist like at the point, but it was kind of an awkward spot. Like I feel like I would only go there if I was dying or something was very bad for me, and I was just kind of like, oh god.
And if you go into the wrong one, you're trying to run
Like,
away, and there's
you
actually
can't
not an
get
exit.
Yeah, so,
So,
it's interesting because it adds more options for people to rotate around there, and so I start to see more fights on the point itself, which is nice, because usually what would happen is people kind of being like, it'll just be like this kind of like push and pull from the high ground and low ground, and so there's just more options on the low ground now, so it plays a little nicer, and it just kind of your mental map's a little better, I would say, because sometimes like you go in there and it feel like you should be able to move around, but it didn't. Like the underground space didn't quite make sense how it fit together, and so I think this helps a lot.
I think
by
your
just
point
kind
to
of opening it up.
Your point to like, I only go in there when things are really bad, like I'm gonna die.
Yeah.
Is usually, and I usually always picked the wrong one, and I went, oh snap, I can't get out this way. Guess I'm gonna die.
Oh, and can we go to the ducks point now?
We'll make our way over there. Just, as we fly through, what were the big challenges with, what did you run into? What are some things you tried during this map in particular that were just harder or didn't work out?
Yeah, this map is just kind of hard. Like everything's so big. If that makes sense. Basically, it's just like there's just like so much competing information with each other, and I think it's just the nature of like having everything made out of junk, and so kind of pushing the themes of everything a little bit more helped a lot. Like the goo with the sewers, which you look at, the bit, all the bombs, the bomb flats, like just kind of make the junkyard feel a little more like a junkyard. Because sometimes they blend together, and as you can see too, we like push the colors a lot more. So like visually, you're like, oh, like this color is like distinct from other ones. But yeah, just like I want, like if you were in the streets between points, same thing with like Suravasa. Sometimes you'd be like, wait, am I on this side of the map or the other side of the map? And some people just get turned around or go through the wrong door. And so we're just trying to like make these big like visual focal points in the sky that you could exactly where to go to. And so this one reads a lot better now. You know exactly what like what it is. Like that it's an entrance. It's not like a little door anymore.
All of the coloring and the lighting is fantastic.
Yeah,
Love it.
it's awesome. Our artists are great.
How about point fighting in particular? What were some things you thought weren't working that you wanted to correct here?
So not a ton has been changed in this point. There's these little shops around point that basically I smoothed out. So I used to have these curved I used to have these curved ceilings with spikes on it, but visually I feel like it's kind of confusing for players because it's like round and spike. Like, can I jump? Like when you're on the ramp, you're like, can I jump up there? Like kind of measuring the distance, or like, can I go up there? Which you could. Which is a little confusing, so just like simplify that geo so it's easier to read. Like when you're in a fight, you don't have to like measure how far you have to jump as much with the curve. And then if you rotate the camera to the left a little bit, it's a little bit more. I added the windows right there just as another place to kind of jump on the point, and so you're not coming from the main entrance. Oh yeah, and I pull, like I did this for a lot of the points too. If you look to the right a little bit, the side entrances, just pull, the door is way higher. It's just like twice as big. Like I did that for like the sewer point as well. Just like boom, you can get onto. I didn't change anything over here.
Just makes that read a
can,
little bit better from the streets.
Yeah, but it was just like, well, also it's just like, want players to get on the point.
Yeah.
Just want you to get in there.
If you are that far out, you have to like don't have to dip as low as you did previously.
Yeah, and so just trying to open everything up again.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do we have any other thoughts? I think there's one other point, but we do also have Aatlis, so I do want to make sure that we're able to kind of talk Aatlis.
Yeah, we'll do sewers real quick then.
Fantastic.
Yeah, could you go to the main entrance outside?
The goo.
Yeah, the goo.
It is really cool looking in the lighting there.
Yeah, just made this a grand entrance. Made it really obvious because again, people come at like they would split up and they would go through like different like directions because nobody quite know what the optimal play was. So just kind of added this grand entrance. And if you fly into the space a little more now, like if you're going on a point.
There's some like elevation changes here too, right? In terms of how,
so this little room used to be a little tiny room.
Yeah.
The doors on each side, way bigger. The door to the point, way bigger. This whole room, much larger. Basically wanted to make it an extension of the point itself instead of a little room attached to the point. And same with the room across, like again, pull the doors, way bigger. Because essentially it kind of felt a little dangerous to be over here. So just like everything's just like way taller, much more open, get people on the point, have more options. Nice. But yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much on the run through for New York Junk City. Really excited to see how community likes these reworks because I think they're awesome. But let's jump into our new Flashpoint map, Aatlis. Would love you to kind of walk me through what were we trying to do with Aatlis, or the lessons that we learned from the previous Flashpoint maps. Oh yes, nice, fantastic behind us.
Yeah, so like this is our third Flashpoint map, and when we do, one after we do the initial release of a mode, we want to make sure it's the culmination of things that we've learned over time. So I think the biggest thing with Aatlis was navigation. Even starting on it early on, like the team was looking at, there's a lot more windy roads. Flashpoint was still like developing, so getting a lot of feedback on it. It was a little bit harder to get onto each point, but we prioritize navigation with this map in particular through a variety of different ways, like looking at the angles of the streets and making sure they're like 45 or 90 degrees, and making sure it doesn't like kind of take you through this like journey that's a little circuitous, like, or just like going kind of in different ways. I think also the distinct points. Aatlis kind of like always had very distinct points. That was something very early on the team was looking at and making sure they felt defined thematically. And I think they did a really good job. So, should we
let's go straight
get on it?
Let's
do
go
it.
straight into the map.
So this is a spawn room, correct?
Yep. Yeah. This is one of the spawn rooms. Got nice little things of the hookah lounge in here, just like nice and intimate, cool space. And this is our, this is a Morocco-inspired map. Well, it's not inspired. It's Marrakesh-inspired in Morocco.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So this map's awesome. It's just in general, it's way smaller than the other Flashpoint. It's just like much more compact. The run times between points and spawns and everything are just like way shorter. That's like one big thing that we learned from the other Flashpoint maps is we need to make those run times shorter. And so that's what we really, really focus on in this map. So if you actually look behind you real quick, so this is really cool to me. This is how you get to the main point. You run through the space right here. Wow. But under the space, like if you could rotate and like look under you, it's probably not great directions, but but essentially this is on top of the forward spawn, which I think which is really cool because the problem we had with Suravasa and New Junk City was our forward spawns were these huge buildings, and basically you had to run around the buildings, and that's what made the run times take a long time. So basically, our team integrated the like forward spawns under the gameplay space right here. So if you like look down a bit, like your forward spawns right here. And so this basically enabled us to have the much shorter like run times, this is just like an ingenious idea my team, like my coworkers had, not me, my coworkers.
let's talk a little bit about this first point.
Yeah.
This one's really interesting because I feel like a lot of fighting actually happens on the elevation, you know, and then there's a big drop onto the point itself. So those first few fights, or that first opening fight at least, you're kind of like, both teams are kind of like rotating around each other, trying to find that first pick, and then they can kind of, because that point's a big drop. Like, how have you found this has worked out?
This is really cool. This was a really interesting design, in my opinion. Like, this is the station point. This will be the first middle point that everybody fights at. This high ground is higher than we would normally have around a point. That's actually this close to the point itself, and I think that's what gives it its unique nature. It's when we have high grounds, they're usually further away from point, but it's like right on top of it.
Yeah, like that ledge right there is like right above the point.
So it's cool because you're like, oh, the high ground's gonna be really strong, but if your team's on the low ground, they can't really get a good angle on you, or they have to go to the other side, but it takes a while to rotate to the other side. So it's actually like you have an advantage like by holding the point at the bottom because you have a lot to rotate and work around down there. There's also basically entrances on every side of the map, like on the first floor and the second floor there. So basically, you can kind of slip in and out of the point like really easily, which is really cool.
I have found like if you are playing, you know, a flanker in particular, like this is actually heaven. You know, you can just rotate all around.
If I'm up here and I'm having trouble, I can like duck around to the right and kind of come to the other entrance, and it just works like that because like to this entrance we just have a ton of those, and it's reflected on the bottom as well, which is really cool.
This is so cool.
I also love the purple. Hits.
Oh yeah, the lighting was really important. This map actually was going to be in the daytime, but we really wanted to push just like the focal points, and we wanted to direct people with color a lot more. And so we tried out nighttime, which was really funny because everybody at first was like, I don't know if like it's gonna work, but like after playing it, we're like, okay, this is actually really cool, and feels really nice. So basically everything almost like glows with its own like unique colors and lighting. It's really
colors
cool.
and the look of that is fantastic.
Yeah,
and it was a pretty late change. So you know, kudos to the team for the ability to actually like get that in and make it look as pretty as it does. We might do the daytime, you know, lighting later on as like an alternate, but we love the nighttime and just like how the navigation in particular. Like, how do I get to each point? Where do I need to go? And that helps a lot because like there's these like kind of like almost point lights at the top, or there's like big pillars of light on each point.
It's like the colors give that additional visual identity that we've been talking about, on top of everything else about the points that are also.
So what's this one? This is beautiful.
Well, actually, real quick, Kate, can you do a 180 and look at the resort real quick? And then if you do 180 again, and then look back at the garden, this is a good example of like how close the points are in this map compared to the other ones. Like they're right there, and like the middle points are right here. So everything's just like much closer, much tighter. Much like the visual identity of them, like we really wanted to pull out. So as you can see here, essentially the point aesthetic is super different, but we also pulled it all the way out to the street. So that's something we learned from the previous Flashpoint maps, is like Suravasa, New Junk City, like they would have unique aesthetics and feeling on the point itself, but you couldn't really read that or see that from outside the point. And so basically it was really important for the team to essentially make them feel really unique and contrast from the street level. So like it's just like pulled all the way out to the street.
So this is Garden Point?
Yep, this is Garden.
Yeah. Playing this internally, there are so many angles you can take on this one.
Yeah.
I love I love like all the aesthetic like in the back half of it too, just the water and the vegetation and everything. But how you're able to navigate this one, you know, if you are a character of high mobility, has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, like high mobility characters will like this point a lot. This map's really cool because one thing that we learned from old Flashpoint maps that we really wanted to push as well is we wanted every single point to feel very different from the others, because sometimes we felt like we didn't have variety in some of the other ones, and so we really pushed it on this one.
Play style variety?
Yeah, so this one like feels really good for some heroes, but then not as good for others, and then we kind of just tried to like switch it up for each point.
This one's kind of like a combo, I think, though, because you have not only do you have a lot of like options if you do have that mobility to wrap around, and there's a lot of different angles. There's also some like longer sight lines too, right? There's some like high ground like looks down into the point, so you know can do well here too as well.
Yeah, I would say all of them are mixtures of that, but then we kind of like push and pull a little bit, like for certain heroes and certain points.
What do you think the weighting of this one would be in particular?
Definitely mobility, but also like when designing all these, we want to give enough cover and we want to give enough to play around for your brawl tanks as well, which is like this recessed area with the walls. Like you're actually like pretty safe in here. Like at first I was thinking like, oh, like Junker Queen like might not be that tough here, but like with these
a lot of cover.
Yeah, like a lot of cover here, like rotating around this pillar. Like if you're defending center point, you have a lot to run around. And then also she's pretty strong like near the doors as well, because it's like much more like tight knit near the entrances and exits to the point. We got frogs.
Frogs.
Those guys. Yeah.
Which I
have. He's doing a little dance.
I have a little fun fact. I think they were one of our developers, Taki, had made some frogs for a rainy day skin that we didn't use, and looks like we got to reuse the little guy on the map. So we got some frog friends.
Those are great.
On the garden point. I love it. Love his little dance.
Oh, and that umbrella you see from right there, it's a good, if you look up. What the heck?
Oh, is another little frog.
Hey, he found his spot, okay?
He's good. He's like, I'm staying out of the way.
But sorry, what I was gonna say is like the umbrella, like if you look up, like that's an example of we wanted you to see exactly where each point was. Like it's like, we know a lot of people aren't gonna look up often when they're playing the game, but it's just like a nice visual, like you can see everything from like far away.
Well, why don't we actually like head over to that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the ones
I was gonna ask, I was like, what is
It's a pretty
umbrella?
interesting one in terms of, it was probably the toughest one to get right, I would say.
Yeah, this one was interesting. I remember playtest, it was kind of a lot of push and pull, and it didn't feel quite right, and like it always felt like favor towards one type of hero other than the other, but I think we came to like a nice spot.
So what's the name of this point?
This is Town Center.
Town Center.
And so this and the Bazaar, which we'll look at a little later, is cool because this is our like old town aesthetic, where we wanted to have like really a lot of the old like Morocco like feel to it. We want to have like the textiles, like the stonework come through, whereas the resort, which you'll also see later, and the gardens, which we just looked at, are more of like the modern like Overwatch future-esque. And so these ones are feel like much more old.
Yeah, the thing that's challenging about this point, if we actually just like go on to it, is the point itself is kind of encased in this building. Yeah. So to get onto this point and actually cap it can be, it's a big commit, right?
Yeah. So this one was interesting too, because like this is the one I would say this is like probably a little more like brawler favored than others. Like we still have like some high ground and some like sight lines for like poke comps to kind of use, but I would say that this is pretty like nice to be like a Ryan or Junker Queen and just kind of run around and beat people up around the pillars. But yeah, this was cool because basically the structure was there for a long time, and the structure felt good, and it's just kind of like playing around with the outside of the that encased area and trying to figure out like what feels good for this point.
Yeah, it had to get opened up quite a bit. I think the doorways were a little bit more closed in previously, and just like more space overall around it. It's still one, I think its identity is one of the strongest ones in terms of how you have to play around it though.
It's really interesting because that's what we were really focusing on. Well, I say we, but my coworkers worked on this map, but it was like, it's a team effort, but we really focus on it in our play test, and we really talk about like, hey, what comps work, and we want to make sure that like, hey, if I'm like Ashe, like does this feel good, or is this like favorite the brawl a little too much? And at the end of the day, we want to create like really interesting shapes and really interesting play spaces that feel different and unique, and we try to push it a lot for this point. Yeah.
I also see all of where you're talking about like having those tall entrances and like where you're like, okay, this is the sight lines, this is where you go. All of those,
by default bigger. Like all doors, all hallways, everything's just bigger by default. Just that's something that we learned from the old Flashpoint maps as well.
Is there another point this way?
Yeah, so if we can probably go to the Bazaar now.
Oh, cool.
Do you love how the lighting is just like taking you back to those points?
Yeah.
Oh, I love this jump pad.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yes, jump pads.
Our we love jump pads, but this is funny because it's like, at first I feel like at first we're kind of like, we don't want people to have big fights outside the point like this. Like, I'm kind of
It happens around this structure,
I was gonna
though,
say,
right?
I was gonna say, I'm going against my word a little bit. Like, normally it's just like, we don't want people to fight out here.
Yeah.
But
Except for here.
people like fighting on the space so much that it just like stayed in there. And like with that jump pad, it's just
Like jumping up, jumping down, going around.
It's a really fun space to fight in, and you don't have to fight in it. So if like you get annoyed, you're like, I'm just going in the point, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like an optional, like your teams can choose to fight out here type of thing. It's pretty cool. But
How has the point played internally? Because you're talking about everybody likes to play on the outside. How is this point played?
Actually, like,
Another one.
it's one of those things where like sometimes people fight out front, but like oftentimes people get in here and fight. This is a really cool point because if we look at the point, right here. So you have a high ground on the opposing side, and the nice thing is like on the point itself is like kind of like a unique shape where the sides of it kind of go down into like this underground recessed area that feeds out under where you are here. And then you also have this high ground that's not too high next to you. So like mobile heroes like BAP and things like that can jump up.
Up and down, up and down.
Yeah,
Nice.
so like the three levels to it, I think is actually really interesting. Like I like this point a lot.
I think what happens here the most, more than any of the other points on Aatlis, is the full point gets utilized.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I feel whenever we're on this one. It's like someone's going to be in the high ground on the back, someone's going to be high ground on the front, someone's going to be in like the side entrance coming down, surprise you from the bottom. Like it can be really, really engaging.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I love all the screens, all the little details, you know, as they've come in. Yeah.
And then we have one more point. Am I
Yeah.
counting correctly? Okay.
We'll go to the resort, which is our
Beautiful point.
our other modern point. This cool little globe.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this one feels again like really different than the other points as well. Very, very resort modern-esque. Like you see the giant sails above the point from like really far away. It's like really, that's the other thing. It's just like really easy to identify these points from far away. Like, we're going to the resort, and it's just like, oh, okay, like I know which one that is. And you can see it from many different angles.
Yeah, and the gameplay on this one's also a little different too. You know, on the point itself, there's these two big pillars that kind of like dictate a lot of like the cover on the point. And then you still, just like we just saw in the Bazaar, there's like that back area of high ground again that can, you know, allow a lot of different heroes to play in different places.
Yeah, so this one's interesting because this one is just like, we have this high ground in the back, and it's like a lot of high ground. It's at the back, but you're pretty exposed. There's not a lot of cover back here. And then we have the two giant pillars in the middle for people to play around. And this is just, and then you have like the staircase back there, so you can kind of dip it. Like if you're on the main point, you can kind of go back and go up the stairs and kind of get up to the people on the sides. And then the sides here that kind of connect towards the main entrance. And so this one just like, has a really unique feeling to it. And this is just a fun point to kind of play around. And I see fights happen in different spots like every single time we fight on this map. Like sometimes it happens like where the big waterfall is like in the big room over there, in the back rooms up there. People fight a lot. Sometimes they fight in like the back edges, and sometimes people fight on the point itself. It's like very, very unique in that way.
I love the wood panel kind of feel.
Yeah, it
like
looks awesome.
It's really, really nice.
No, like, all the details are.
Yeah, this bar at the top is gorgeous. Look at that view. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Who would not want to sit there? Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Now this point, I think it also just feels like color-wise really easy to identify, not only from the outside, but also like just like I think the lighting on it really highlights all the heroes really well.
Oh yeah, I love how the nightlight, the nighttime lighting came together. It really gives everything a stronger identity.
So what would you say, you know, moving through Aatlis, like where some of those lessons learned with, you know, we're trying to do a better job of navigation in terms of highlighting grand entrances, also just like in terms of like how the roads you're on. Where do you find fights are happening more? Are they happening more on points? How's this map playing out? overall?
You still see fights happen on the way to points, but I would say that you would see that more with teams that choose to do so, which I think we're fine with that happening.
Like holding forward more or something?
Yeah, which is fine, but like what we don't want happening is teams that don't want to fight in the middle and it's kind of getting picked off and things like that. So just since the routes to like each point are like so much, like it's way closer. I don't have the exact numbers, but like many seconds like quicker, many meters closer. Everything's just like way smoother. And I think that was the biggest complaint of our previous maps. The run times are too long, so it's just like boom, make them as quick as possible while still having these 5 control points.
No,
and
a lot of fun to see it get developed. But this map is coming out, very soon. For people that haven't obviously played it yet, what are some heroes you think would work well here?
I mean, everybody does.
Everybody does.
It's a cop-out answer, but like it's nice.
What are we commonly seeing though?
I mean, you can play whoever you want. I see like Lucio's have like a ton of fun on here.
It's a very fun Lucio map.
Yeah, it's a fun Lucio map.
Yeah.
For like, at first I was like, like that's one of the things too. Like we test out like brawl comps a lot as well. So like you have a lot of options for brawl comps. So some of like the longer sight lines and things we give like players to play around a lot more. Like for the resort map, we had the 2 big pillars and then like the stairs in the back. You can kind of push people on, and you can kind of like rush a lot of those spots. So I'd say like it's pretty viable for most people, which kind of the goal for us to kind of leave it open like that.
Do you have like any final thoughts, either one of you, on Aatlis specifically?
I think Flashpoint's really come a long way, and I'm really excited to see how Aatlis does and how these reworks do. I think just taking all the feedback from all the players has really helped shape these maps and how you navigate between them, and hopefully players aren't getting picked off, and there's not as many stragglers. So we're excited to see like how these play out pretty soon.
Yeah, and kind of going back to the reworks, like we're reworking these maps because we want people to like our maps. We want like them all to play better, and like that's the awesome thing with like the map voting system is like we get that data. Like if you don't like a map, we want to fix the map, so we want to do more reworks in the future, and so we're looking forward to doing much more of that.
Awesome. Well, first of all, can you change and fix Winton's glasses?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'll get it.
It
was really important. It was really important. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. Super appreciate everybody that's been here and watching. Just double checking. Final thoughts, Alec, George?
Yeah, we want to do these. We want to do more of these. We want to get your feedback on how this went. For what we want to do with these live streams, we want to break down things, give it more detailed, have a more casual environment. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and let us know what you want us to talk about next time.
Yeah, absolutely. George, any other final thoughts?
No, I mean, this was a lot of fun. Like, I would say devs and like a lot of us in general like talking about our work and kind of getting nerdy about like, this is why we did this or that, and so like, it's fun. Like, we would love doing more of these, like the rest of the team, so I agree.
Hype. Just want to call out, in case you guys didn't know, Season 17 starts on Tuesday. And as a reminder, all of the cool map reworks, those are coming at mid-season. Aatlis, that we just went through, that will be available to run through and play starting on Tuesday. And then the reworks will be a bit later. But thank you guys so much. And hope to see you guys again in the next one.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good one.